Well, and that'll be the start of it. Hi there, and welcome to what will not exactly be named Truck Talk anymore. The trucks, Ruby, well, she's dead, at least for now. The brake system needs flushed, and until then I've been stuck here, because it hasn't been safe to drive since. So I'm afraid that attempting to record my morning commute is no longer possible. And really trying to do these things in the presence of my family, it's not an easy thing. So we're kind of stuck here, and admittedly, when I'm not driving and in the privacy of my own home, I tend to be much quieter and less. It's much harder for me to accept that lively persona otherwise. When I'm not, actively doing something or if I'm with somebody. So things tend to be a lot quieter in here. As, well, this is how I am privately. The fact that I'm even talking is, honestly, it's really difficult because there's not much to do. I'm not keeping myself busy, and there's nothing social about it. At the same time, people still somehow miss and enjoy these. So, and yesterday was skipped, so we're going to be in this for the long haul. The big problem really is just figuring out what to say. I haven't prepared any points, as usual. I had a few that I was thinking of writing down, and once more, I never thought to actually write them down. And that's something I really need to fix. Because as it is, this is probably going to be the first episode that's going to be uploaded to a public platform. Mainly because this is meant to be a creative project available to the public. To not only, make some actual creative output, but to also get my name out there and just do something that might mean something to other people. Speaking of which, if you're a new listener, welcome. This used to be Truck Talks. But, well, again, the truck's dead. And I'm looking for a name to really figure that out. Because the morning commute doesn't really work. You could listen to it on your morning commute, but that's not really the point of it. I could just say that they're audio logs. That would fit very well. The Flak files would also fit. Oh yeah, speaking of, I'm your host, Flak Wilkins. Or at least that's what I prefer to go by. That's obviously a pen name. And these are very, very unscripted. I tend to jump from point to point. Mainly, a lot of it's due to ADHD, OCD, autism is a bitch too. But, here I am. I'm still making things, and I still want to make things. These sorts of things have helped me out, and I've enjoyed it thoroughly over the course of my life, and it's probably about time I contribute to it to myself. The question is, what would be a viable alternative name for this little series that I've been doing, where I just record myself talking effectively to myself for 40 minutes, which originally was just meant so, people would be spared the pain of having to listen to me talk and talk and talk and talk. Because that's kind of all I do. And then, people actually started fucking enjoying them. It's a fucking pain in the ass is what it is. But here we are now, and I've got a duty to my audience, however small it is. And I'll carry out that duty to the best of my ability. It's good. Still just trying to think of new names, though. Because it's something to have your platform be named. And the name for my platform is obviously Iowa Entertainment Laboratory. Iowa's my home, entertainment's the field I wish to contribute, And laboratory, for I choose to keep pushing my personal creative boundaries as far as they can go along, as I figure things out as I go along. Effectively a scientist at the end of the day, making new discoveries. And making those discoveries because I refuse to go off of the wisdom and experience of those before me because, by God, I have to do things my own way. That wouldn't be a bad name. My own way? Perhaps. This is going to be an extra long episode as well, or at least I hope I can make it extra long. And the primary reason for that being I really owe it to people. I ended up skipping a week's episode, and, well, that was the policy I set for myself. If I miss a week, or if it's even late, I gotta record an extra long session. For, the people that actually enjoy it, and the people that want it. I just wish my schedule was more consistent, but alas, I live at the mercy of my anxiety and live at the mercy of a truck that fucking hates me and is being kept on life support. Because that's the fucking problem with these 2003 trucks. These 90s to early 2000s trucks. You can't kill the engines on these fucking things. Do whatever you want to them, they're not gonna fucking die. But God forbid. They're competing with the Titanic to see which can collapse from rust first. And the brake system has needed flushed for months and months, and ever since I bought it, really. I knew it needed flushed since I bought it, and I just haven't had the money to do it. Now I barely do, but... yeah, it's just a pain. It's all a damn pain. And I would have had the money to do it, but I bought a washer and dryer for my family. Not a halfway decent pair, a used pair I found on Craigslist. And they ended up not being much better than what we had, because as it turns out, the less I complain about that, the better. But the question is, and the question will always remain, what do I call this? Well, at least I hope it won't always remain. And who knows, maybe somebody will be smart enough to come up with a good name, because Lord knows I have trouble with those. I have a lot of trouble with those. And, of course, the shift in tone must be jarring for some people. I'm a lot more lively when I'm in my truck. Or with other people in general, and when I'm on my own and I'm kind of sitting at my desk and terrified of what I might do or what I can't do. This is me who I am when I'm on my own. Just very, very quiet. The way I like to describe it is that I store my energy up for other people. Admittedly, it's hard convincing myself that those other people actually want me around, but... I was told that this series was missed when I just missed a week. Oh, for God's sake. Oh, Discord. It's just finding that name. What would be a good name? The only problem is that captain's log has probably already been taken. I could call it the commander's report. Because I love RTS games. I fucking love them. And admittedly, I yearn for the day where I can walk into my office and be greeted with, "Welcome back, Commander," unironically. That would be nice. But that'll never happen. But who knows? Maybe I could... Then again, a few people tend to call me boss, which, frankly, I get it and I don't get it at the same time. I usually prefer chief, to be honest. Because chief it's a little less formal than boss. And, it kind of leans into fields that I've really liked, as, like chief engineer, chief designer. Which is... that wouldn't be bad. Can't do anything with papers. Papers just isn't right. But that's an idea. No. That... I still need to think about it. Maybe talking about something else will help get my inspiration flowing. Because there's actually been something else I've been working on for the last week or two, and that's just working on learning Godot, the game engine. It's free, it's open source, and, well, video games are a medium I've wanted to contribute to for a very, very long time. Honestly, ever since I was a little kid, I've enjoyed video games. The games I grew up with, fucking Halo, SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom, Lego Star Wars. I mean, all those games, I owe it to the medium, and I owe it to the people I care about to make something that they can enjoy. And, I mean, admittedly, it's, like, I've been working on learning the Godot engine. It's that stupid thing in the Godot docs, your first 3D project. And I got it completed, and I made a few modifications to it, and I plan on making further modifications. Mainly, once I'm able to implement, like, a proper analog movement, because right now it's using this if action is pressed tree of movement, and it works, but the problem is that because, like, the if action pressed, all it does is that it tells, it's the target velocity, and then, plus equals 1, so, go your target velocity in that direction, and then you go 2 velocities, oh, no, it's a square root, so you got to normalize it, so if you're going in a diagonal direction. And that works fine enough, but for what I want to make as, like, an initial project, which is like a basic 3D platformer, effectively, I want to rip off Battle for Bikini Bottom, because I just think it would be a fun project to work on. But the problem with that binary kind of movement is that it doesn't really work very well for your analog controllers, because, and 3D platformers especially, 3D platformers live and die by their character movement. You need to have it down, and you need to have it down pat, and you need to have it very, very finely tuned in order for it to feel appropriate. Rushing your character movement in a 3D platformer is the absolute worst thing you could do for your game. And so having those, and having that if action is pressed tree, like, you're still going to have a fairly precise control over your position, because it tests very well with the analog stick. The little demo I made. It tests very well with it, it works very well with it, but it's not enough. You need to have that full control over your direction in order for it to feel proper. And that's something that will definitely have to change. I've been going around on the Godot Discord, and there's some methods there I'm going to try out eventually, so effectively never. This is probably going to be the one project I make and then fuck all for the entire rest of my life. But on the extremely unlikely off chance I actually manage to do something more with it than what I've already done, then I'll probably try to implement this analog movement system and throw together some basic, and I mean basic world, to experiment with different movement mechanics. The big thing is going to be figuring out how to implement, like, grapple points. Because if you've played Battle for Bikini Bottom, there's a character's movement and there's Sandy's movement. And, she can lasso and grapple onto certain points and then hover And for me, I've never really enjoyed double jumping in video games, which, more 3D platformers ought to have. Double jumping is just a lot of fun to have, and it's a lot of fun to use, and it's very, very satisfying. At least for a lot of people. But for me, the big thing is having a hover. I don't know why, but I've always loved having that hover mechanic to get you across gaps and stuff like that, and as well as that grapple mechanic, which is very momentum based, and it's really satisfying to kind of swing from point to point. And that'll be something to really implement. And additionally, for the project, instead of, because in Battle for Bikini Bottom, when Sandy lassos like an enemy or an object, she usually destroys it immediately. But what I want to do, I'm not sure if I actually can, but what I really want to do is have that object instead be grappled to Minerva so she can hold it and... Sorry, Minerva, the player character. Have it grappled to the player character so she can throw it, so she can pick it up and throw it. Which I think would be fairly neat. So, like, certain physics objects and enemies she'd be able to pick up and throw. I think that would end up pretty decent. I mean, Lord knows, I gotta put it together, actually, and before I could say, it could be good. It could be damn good, but could be's and shoulda, woulda, coulda doesn't make a game. At the same time, it's extremely difficult trying to work up the courage in order to actually, make those programs, make those games. It's not an easy grind to make a game. We're talking about a years-long project, especially for a 3D project where you have modeling, you have rigging, you have animations, you have keyframes, and all of this and all of that. It is not going to be easy. It's going to be damn hard. It's intimidating, really, but at the same time, I'm a problem solver at heart, and I really like, and I really like solving and making things, and I want to make things. And the fact that I haven't followed my dreams and made things for this long is a fucking crime. Because at the end of the day, there's only so much satisfaction you're going to get from fixing people's computers. And I get quite a bit. It is absolutely incredible when I can have a customer walk out the door with a big old smile on their face, happy that I fixed them up. Honestly, I kill for that sensation. It's fantastic. Oh, excuse me, sorry. Because ultimately, that's one of the things I really want to do. Best part of waking up is Baja Blast in your gut. I fucking hate you, PepsiCo. I hate you, but I love your products. Baja Blast. It's gonna kill me one of these days. I'll be sitting there, 50 years old, sipping on a Baja Blast, and I'll have a heart attack right then and there from a sugar overload, and I'll be like... And nobody can actually do fucking CPR to get my heart restarted, and nobody can put the electrodes on, because there's just that much fat, because of all the goddamn sugar they put in this stuff. It'll be fun. I'll be like, I'll die at 47 due to a heart attack, because of that shit. But yeah, apart from the truck breaking down and working on games, or working on learning the engine to make games, which will honestly probably never happen. But and that's the big thing, is that I'm not even sure if IEL will even succeed. I'm not even sure if I'll contribute anything more than these little logs, I guess. But at the same time, It's something I've wanted to do for a long time. And it's just, shoulda, woulda, coulda doesn't make anything. It's just... And that's another thing, too, is actually trying to figure out my brand. Because there's really two sides to my personality. There's the acerbic, foul-mouthed wit, and then there's the really quiet, introspective, and... yeah, very quiet, introspective, and rather cyclic. Well, no, both sides are cyclic to a fault, but... you get the idea. It's like bipolar without the fun parts of being bipolar. It's honestly irritating. Because because people split themselves kind of into archetypes as a survival strategy, right? Where you show different sides of yourself to different people. And the problem is that I'd really just like to be the one side of myself. I just like to be myself in its entirety. But the problem is that people are far more complex. They're far too complex to be that way. There's only so many people that's like that. And especially for someone like me, where splitting yourself into archetypes was especially for me, where it was a survival tactic to keep myself sane and otherwise dire times, yeah. So it's really not that easy being my whole self for anything. I'm not my whole self for... I think I'm only my whole self for one or two people. Because even then, when I'm with them, I still have that acerbic wit and those jokes, and, and I'm just that guy. But that's just not who I am on my own. I'd love for these things to be because I'm driving and they're fun to listen to because I have all those stupid little bits and I'm a lot more animated and very 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 higher energy. And then there's these which could be very low energy and I hope to God relaxing and at the very least relaxing and just something to help you wind down for the day. And I'm not sure where that in-between will lie. Because I don't want to split myself as a brand or as a person between those two. I'd rather be a synthesis, rather than the thesis and the antithesis. Because, yeah, we're breaking out the fucking dialectics today, aren't we? I'm smart. I'm smart. Christ. Yeah, I know books. But it's just... it would just be ideal to be my whole self instead of something I split myself into. And Lord knows, it would probably be best to be, quiet and unobtrusive, especially for my weekly tabletop sessions. It's a struggle. It's a struggle doing anything when you hate yourself as much as I do. Because, my whole life has, up to this point, up to these recent months, has really driven me that... it's really drilled into me that you're not worth anything. You would be worth more to people if you just fucking died and got into the ground and was fertilizer, instead of a human being contributing to their lives because you haven't done anything. You've just taken from them, and that's all you do is take. And I've had that drilled into me for years and years and years. That all I do is just bring everybody's lives down and subject them to ceaseless agony. And the only reason and honestly, the main reason I'm even bringing it up here is because it's taken a lot of effort to stop being that way for the largest part. And I swear I will live and die by my honesty. Honesty as a creator to to my audience, and honesty as a man to a fellow man. That's just, it's a really dumb line in the sand to draw, but it's my line in the sand. God damn it. I refuse to say anything directly contrary to the truth. And honestly, I don't even like withholding the truth in the first place. At the same time, when someone asks you if they can trust you with a secret, you're honor bound to protect that secret. The only problem is that honor in this day and age is it's sad how much it's gone. And and I get it, right? Because honor used to have such strict rules, and everybody's like, oh, and it's gotten so much easier to back out. But and one thing that really highlights like how ridiculous a promise is during the Roman, I want to say it was like the Roman invasion of the Punics, or the Punic War. I can't remember their names. I want to say the Phoenicians, but that does not sound right at all. So I'm just going to refer to them as the Punics. But I go to the Punics, and the commander there, I want to say one of the consuls, I think they called them. But he went over there, and he was captured, and he was like, oh yeah, I want to, I just want to go over there and, want to go back to the home of my people and say, give them warning and all of that. And it's like, what, you promise you're not going to run away? No, I promise. So he goes over there. Could have just fucking stayed there. But by God, no, you never, ever break a promise. Even though we openly enslave people and chop their pets in half. To borrow the terms from Oversimplified, I guess. He's a fun channel to watch on occasion. And, well, I mean, those are the standards I hold myself to, because, well, promises mean a lot to me, and, whenever people break a promise, it breaks my fucking heart. So I usually work to treat others the way I'd like to be treated, and that means I never, ever break a promise, and I never, ever make a promise that I cannot guarantee that I can keep. It's fucking awful otherwise. Because if you make a promise that you don't know if you can keep or not, why the fuck are you making it? It's not okay. It's not good. It's not moral. It's not morally just to make a promise and not knowing if you can fucking keep it. And we live in a world of broken dreams and promises, especially nowadays. It's such a... I refuse. I absolutely refuse. I'm not the most reliable guy in the world, and I will freely admit that. But when it comes to promises, it's just not right. A promise is not a best effort thing. A promise is, no, I will do this. This is TCP/IP. This isn't UDP. You're not just throwing it out there and just hoping to God the recipient address gets it. This isn't fucking UDP. This is TCP/IP, where we're gonna fucking check and make sure every goddamn packet has been gotten there. That's a promise. That's why I tell a lot of people, I can promise my best effort, but I can't promise anything else. And a lot of the time I end up managing to do it anyway, but That's how stringent I am with how promises are made and kept. And it grinds my gears when people say, like, oh yeah, I'll be there in 5 minutes, I promise. You said 5 minutes. Get the fuck up here. I know it's a very fucking strange hill to die on. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. But it's my hill and it's my line in the sand, by God. That's actually not a horrible name, the line in the sand. But even then, my original inspiration for making these was like, eventually I'd have a camera and I'd have a computer with the storage space to store video files. As it is right now, I am scraping against the bottom of the barrel with trying to get storage with the storage drives, because I've got a 1 terabyte hard disk drive and 90% of it's taken up by games. And I'm just not that good at file management. Admittedly. I'm not very organized. Unless I make an active effort to be organized, everything just... Because that's the thing. I can be obsessively organized, and I can have everything down to the nittiest, grittiest little detail. But I have to actively set myself forth to do that. Because everything can either be incredibly well organized and incredibly well optimized, or it can be a complete and utter fucking mess. But the original, but yeah, I got beside the point. The original inspiration was to have like, like get one of those cheap electric fireplaces or something, and just like fire that up and have my recliner, and when I eventually got a recliner, and I'd have my recliner there and an end table with a little tacky old lamp on there, and I'd record fireside chats. Kind of like John F. Kennedy during his presidency, and he always sat. I think he had like a weekly broadcast, a weekly radio broadcast. I can't. Let me look that up. I'm at my desk. Assassination coverage, blah, 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 live stream, CBS's 1963 coverage, blah, 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 blah. Oh, it's just the... fucking irritating. It's always just the assassination. Because he was very chummy with the press, if memory serves. Or maybe I'm thinking... Oh! Maybe I'm thinking of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Truman Roosevelt. Here we go. Longest serving U.S. president, the only one to have served more than 2 terms. Forrest saw him... Oh wow, he served 4 terms. Saw him shift his focus to America's involvement in World War II. Member of the prominent Delano and Roosevelt families. Roosevelt was elected to New York State Senate from 1911 to 1913. Assistant Secretary. Eleanor Roosevelt, Governor of New York. During his first 100 days of presidency, he spearheaded the unprecedented federal legislation, implementing the New Deal, building the New Deal coalition, realigning American politics into the fifth party system. Numerous programs to provide relief to the unemployed and farmers while seeking economic recovery with the National Recovery Administration and other programs. Stupid. I wish you were still here, Frankie. We need you now more than ever. political career, government in New York, presidential election, presidency. Four-day national bank holiday to end the run by depositors seeking to withdraw funds. Special session of Congress on March 9th. Maybe if I look up an FDR Fireside chat, that'll get me something. Yep, and here we go. A series of evening radio addresses given by Franklin D. Roosevelt, 32nd president between 1933 and 1944. Spoke with familiarity to millions of Americans about recovery from the Great Depression, the promulgation of the Emergency Banking Act in response to the banking crisis, 1936 recession, the New Deal initiatives, and of course, World War II. This is the main inspiration for why I wanted to call my program Fireside Chats for the longest time. Because admittedly, I look up to Franklin a lot. He did a lot for this country. He saved it. He forged it into America that every American could have been proud of. It's painful to be a patriot, especially nowadays. Especially when a lot of your life is online, but you're still, at the end of the day, definably American. Because I plan to move to Europe, though the Lord knows if I'll ever do that now. But I still plan to, and at the end of the day, the problem is that I'm still going to be fundamentally American. And part of it, because a lot of it's my identity. I've made it my identity. For years, a lot of my life was focused on being the being the culmination of American ideals. Which, it's like how a lot of 20-year-olds say they want to be God or, I'm going to be an actor. For me, I wanted to be the embodiment of America, of the good parts of what it meant to be an American. Loyal, hardworking, easy to work with a certain bravado and with a certain courage and bravado that would help others take up arms in defense of their countries against the endless tide of fascism. That was my dream. But admittedly, it was pretty damn lofty. I could probably still do it. In fact, maybe it's likely. Maybe I already am that man. But, well, it's not exactly American to be humble. Well, at least not modern American. It's never been American to be modest. And admittedly, I'd rather be modest and humble and say I'm not that great. Which is the big problem. It's really exceptionalism and nostalgia for the past that's really broken things down. But yeah. Maybe that's what I'll call them. Fireside Chats. I think that'll be just fine. Let me see how long this has been going. 39 minutes. So we've still got about 10 more minutes on the clock. This is an extra long episode after all. So let's read, you and I, about the Fireside Chats. 1933, spoke with familiarity to millions of Americans about recovery from the Great Depression, the promulgation of the Emergency Banking Act in response to the banking crisis, the 1936 recession, New Deal, and actually, maybe I can talk about something that my little pet project that I've been working on for the longest time. because and I apologize, by the way. I know we were just talking about making these, reading about the Fireside chats and maybe reviving them with my with my humble little channel. But really, really like to talk about one of my writing projects, which has been around for a long time, and which, admittedly, I've really wanted to work on for the longest time. Because before there was like many of my projects, before there was trying to make games, and well, admittedly, I've wanted to make games for years, and this is the result of it. The real genesis of IEL, the birth of IEL started with Truck Talk 5, and that was the birth of it being an official, at least an official entity formalized in my mind as to what to call myself as a creator. But ultimately, the real genesis of my creative ambition started with my love of real-time strategy and my love of Star Wars clashing in horrific and ugly fashion. And thus was the birth of Project Grayscale. Grayscale is... It's been a lot of things over the years. Really. The genesis of Grayscale was me, because I was young and I would do, and I'd be on a bunch of roleplay servers, subreddits and stuff like that. I used to do Roblox, fucking role-playing and shit like that, and then I moved to Discord, and, well, now I haven't for some years, well, not for some years, but for some months now. Mainly because it's sort of a waste of time, but really I've just kind of outgrown it. And I gotta do something more with my life, but Grayscale specifically, at least in its modern iteration, is my love of Star Wars and my love of real-time strategy games colliding. And a lot of people was like, oh, why don't you just play Empire at War? Well, I mean, the problem is that, Star Wars was fucking ruined. And, the old saying, in 2003, someone somewhere was a nerd angry about Star Wars. And ever since I think the last Star Wars movie I ever watched was Solo, and I fucking hate it. And I've just stayed away from everything Star Wars ever since. I've kept up with the news for years. I've kept up with the news and the broadcasts. But otherwise, I've really stayed away from it because Disney, well, I'd love to use the word, but Disney fucked the franchise. They bent it over and made it call Bob Iger Daddy. And really, I just can't abide by it. So, and there's a few other bones I have to pick with it, like the droid army being just incompetent and stupid, and so I decided to make my own. So basically, I decided to make my own Star Wars with blackjack and hookers. In fact, forget the Star Wars. But really, it's a whole universe built specifically for an RTS game I wish to one day make, surrounding a war between three factions of. You've got like a coalition of alien races that's very heavily inspired by a post-World War II NATO, where it's really led by America and that fucking dog. Sorry, by the way. The problem with living with your mother is dogs. I'm honestly amazed she hasn't barked until now. But anyway, so you've got this coalition of alien races, ran by, and it's very heavily inspired by post-World War II NATO, led by the not the Podborn, the REIN, REIN, which is very heavily inspired by post-World War II U.S. and Britain, we run the coalition, and all the other guys just kind of have to play ball for the sake of mutual defense. Then you have Renton Laboratories, which is effectively a mega corporation that it very quickly had to kind of reform itself into a functioning state. And because of that, it's ran a lot like an actual monarchy with fiefdoms and fealty and all that bullshit. But instead of dukes and instead of dukes and their duchies, you've got you got your department heads and the departments under them. And with the king, the owner at the top, Lavernius Renton, who has basically cloned himself over several generations to keep the company in the hands of to keep the company in his hands. But the problem is that it's a clone, it's a cloning thing. So every Renton is still been fundamentally a different person. And then you have Flak Mechworks, which it's my pet faction, admittedly. It's a race of robots originating from Earth. They ended up, and they ended up kicking Renton off of the Earth, and that's why they're in space. And now they're trying to go out into the galaxy and grab whatever chunks of it they can, because the master control AI, Wilhelm, is following his programming from centuries ago of just war. When they were still at war with Renton. And so, he's forced to abide by that programming, even though he knows it's outdated and ineffective. And while he's had some success trying to rewrite parts of himself, those are core directives in his programming, and he can't, he can't ignore them. So and as well, I've always wanted to make the Mechworks kind of, by some margin, the better one. Like with the MWC, you have a lot more freedom, but the problem is that it's really, really fickle, because, it's a democracy. So the people are very fickle. Military spending is also like a really big no-no. So the military has to manufacture toys and shit and sell merchandise in order to actually make up the budget shortfall. Then you've got Renton, which is very unless you're a certain unless it's very it's a fucking kingdom, right? So unless you're born into certain positions, you have absolutely no mobility whatsoever. And on top of that, they're also really focused on science. Military development is very hush hush, or and it's also reserved for the lower beings. And what they've been doing is using prisoners as their foot soldiers for years now. And with the big war in the Orion arm of the galaxy, well shit, now we're running out of people, and they've turned to cloning their prisoners in order to make up the shortfall of how many boots they have on the ground. And also because they're a system of kingdoms and fiefdoms and stuff like that, nothing is particularly centralized, and so their industry is much, much weaker compared to most of the other factions. Despite being technologically the most advanced, they're the most socially backwards. And then you have Flak Mechworks, the least technologically advanced of all three, outside of some specific things. But what they do have of their technologies is incredibly well optimized. Incredibly well optimized, because that's, kind of the nature of an AI, right? It works to, or at least that was the nature of the AI, until we found out, nowadays that they fucking suck. But that was the nature nowadays, was to, through rigorous testing and trial and error, they'd be able to get something extremely hyper optimized, but they wouldn't be able to have a base to work on. Unless there's a base to optimize, they don't, it's extremely hard to develop new things. And, the Mechworks is able to provide for its people, but the problem is that those people, they have to live in a very constricting system. They don't have very many freedom. They don't have a lot of freedoms under that system, but everybody gets a bed, everybody gets shelter, everybody gets well fed, and everybody has access to clean water. Or, whatever your species equivalent of fucking water is. And so you have those kind of three ideologies clashing against each other. And the whole idea is that, like, nobody's a bad guy and everybody's the bad guy. Because, like, even in Iron Harvest, right, where they kind of have shades of that, or even, or like StarCraft, everybody's just kind of evil and out for themselves. But then you get StarCraft 2, and, there's some definite good guys in there, and admittedly the writers were just a little thirsty for Sarah Kerrigan, I think. Just like Jimmy. But, I mean, that's the idea, is that nobody's a bad guy and everybody's the bad guy. Everyone has their, everybody has skeletons in their closet, and just about as many skeletons as the others. And the whole idea is that, they got to team up to fight, one guy from Renton Labs, which is like this, one guy from Renton Labs, and then a defense contractor from the MWC making a power play by, like disabling a local control node for Wilhelm that's like going down. Like, like this, like a planet-sized supercomputer that houses Wilhelm's AI. And, he takes it over, and, oh my god, he's gonna take it over, he might kill us all. We gotta team up, boys, we gotta stop this. And, just have a nice little story about that. I don't expect to win any awards with originality there, but I'm hoping with proper execution, it'll be a fun time. Because a lot of the time, it's not really about the destination, it's the journey, and it's probably going to be... Yeah, I think it'll be nice. Because, admittedly, the more interesting thing to do would be to let the bad guy win, but I think nowadays what we really need is a little bit of hope in our lives. I know I do, at the very least. And, Lord knows, maybe it'll actually be fun. I hope it will. Especially as an RTS game. I need to get back to writing some unit profiles for it, because I used to do those, and I used to write one. I used to try and write one like every single day. I wasn't really able to maintain that kind of output. But I really like writing these unit profiles. Maybe I'll publish them one day. Because there's a lot of, like, one of the big things with the unit profiles is not only their, like, unit overviews and all of this, and, their survivability, protection, firepower, every fucking RTS has those. And, all of them have their abilities and stuff like that, but something I've always really, really focused on was their development, their service, and their cultural impact. Because that forms a lot of what, makes an image of a military in people's minds. Is not just their development and their service and, what they can do, but it's their cultural impact and the legacy that they leave behind. And that's something I've really wanted to focus on. Like, say for the MWC, that coalition of alien races, they have the Vanguard Trooper and the Elite Trooper, which are there because, they're a really, really small military, so they have to make their units as good as they can possibly get. And so you have these guys wearing fucking power armor, running around, and you've got the Elite Trooper, which is like slightly smaller power armor. I'm thinking, kind of like a New Vegas, power armor where like it's kind of bulky. And then you've got the MWC Vanguard Troopers, which would sort of be like your elementals from BattleTech, where you can almost sit in the thing and, it's like a cross between it's like almost a cross between a mech that you sit in and a suit of armor that you wear. And, and those two, they form kind of the core of the NWC, and they're the faces, because, they're out and about, and a lot of it's, due to explicit marketing, but it's also due to just the fact that, they're everywhere in the military. It's always that it's always that legacy that they leave behind, for me. And some vehicles have understated roles, and they're not, very well known. But, I think it adds a lot of flavor to what is otherwise just a generic RTS unit. Because, like, everybody knows the siege tank, but nobody really knows the cultural impact and the legacy of the siege tank. What does it inform of the people that field it? Like, sure, the Terrans, they're the low-tech, but, low-tech but scrappy and, hard-wearing. But what does that really mean for the Terrans, right? You know, what does the siege tank hold in the collective conscious? What do the people know it as? And that's a question I try to answer with every single one of the units I write for my project. Maybe it's not the correct way to go about it, but it's definitely my way of going about it. And, well, when you're living my life, you learn quickly that it's my way or the highway, and the highway ain't got shit. But I think I've been talking enough. Y'all need a fucking break. So, thank you for listening to Fireside Chats public episode 1. And that's enough. Fuck off.